Welcome to Healing Medicine, formerly the Mindful Healers podcast.
This is the podcast for physicians and healthcare professionals who crave balance and purpose. If you want to rediscover your love for medicine and life, one mindful step at a time, you are in the right place. We are Dr. Jessie Mahoney.
And Dr. Nichang Liang, physicians who bring decades of experience in physician health and wellness and leadership to the wellness conversation. Like so many of you, we felt the exhaustion, the disillusionment, and the weight of a career that demands so much, often at the expense of our own well being.
In this podcast, we explore mindfulness, mindset, and real, sustainable health and well-being strategies.
Not as another task to add to your plate, but as a way to experience medicine and life differently.
Each episode dives into practical strategies, coaching tools, and real conversations to help you feel more present, fulfilled, and in control.
When we are healthy and well, we become powerful agents of change.
If you're ready to break free from exhaustion, cynicism, overwhelm, feeling ineffectual and stuck, and rediscover joy and presence, you are in the right place.
A life and a career that truly fits you await.
Reminder that nothing in this podcast is medical advice.
You were never meant to carry it all. Healing the eldest daughter effect.
Were you the one they always counted on?
The one who held it all together?
The responsible one, the caretaker, the one who could always be relied upon.
The one that everyone else confided in. The one who could manage things that other siblings couldn't. Then, this episode is for you. Even if you weren't an eldest daughter, if you are a woman in healthcare, a lot of what is going to be shared in this episode may resonate with you.
So both of us are eldest daughters and physicians, and we anticipate that many of you listening are also likely both of these. Being an eldest daughter, and this is the daughter who is the firstborn daughter, whether you have a older sibling who is not a daughter, shapes our lives, and it shapes our work in medicine. And we hope to offer today some awareness of how this may have impacted the way you are, and the way you think, and the way you make decisions, and the way you relate to your family. And that this awareness may be both enlightening, a little sad, but also empowering.
So, what exactly is eldest daughter syndrome? There have been some common patterns that have been described in the literature as being responsible. And I'd even add like overly responsible, dutiful, caring, expedient, thoughtful, overachieving, anxious, self critical, and slightly overwhelmed.
Just
Wow,
want
a
to
lot of
point
those
out
words.
they describe doctors too, right?
Yeah.
Over-responsible, dutiful, caring, expedient, thoughtful, overachieving, anxious, self-critical, silently overwhelmed. And they describe a lot of what we're expected to be in medicine also. So
Mhm.
I hear often when I talk about ways we were trained that, well, I came that way. And some of this is maybe eldest daughter syndrome. I mean, there are a lot of people in medicine who are not eldest daughters, so it's not exclusively that. But I think it has many of the same impacts, even if you aren't an eldest daughter, probably. And if you're an eldest daughter and a physician, double whammy.
Yeah, I was going to say that a lot of those words definitely resonate with not just me as an eldest daughter, but I see this in many of my girlfriends and other physician colleagues in general.
Mhm.
So it's a little bit of a time now for some vulnerability, bringing in my own personal story into this. So I've shared before that I am from an immigrant family. I immigrated to the US when I was 5 as the eldest daughter. And we had a lot of insecurity, particularly financial insecurity, at least in my parents' eyes. And so my parents worked a lot, like to the point where I really felt like I grew up in childhood alone and taking care of my brother. So I ended up doing a lot of the parenting for him and then also self parenting me. And very quickly going through grade school, I took on the role of protector. So protecting my brother from bullies and then wanting to alleviate any further stress that I could add on my parents because they were already stressed out from the significant financial insecurity that we were experiencing. My modicum apparently in elementary school and middle school and most of high school was really just putting my head down and working really hard and excelling in academics, partly to get like the very little praise that I would even get from my parents at the time, and also mostly because then my parents wouldn't worry. I remember distinctly we were of like the latchkey kid generation where you would be dropped off at the bus stop. I didn't have anyone to walk me home or anything like that. Walked myself home with my brother. We'd come home to a dark and quiet house. And I remember distinctly having this big stash of frozen burritos in the freezer, popping it into the microwave, and that was going to be either my after school snack and or my dinner for the night, or like one of those $1 rectangular quick microwave pizzas that are delicious and we rarely enjoy now, but those were kind of my staples in going home. The reason why the house was so quiet was because my mom was asleep for her night shift and we didn't want to disturb her. She worked the graveyard shift for the post office for over 20 years. So my parents were quite absent for a lot of my day-to-day childhood, and extracurricular activities meant one more added thing for them to do, to arrange carpool situations or even just straight up rides. I remember very anxiety provoking high level competitions for piano at the Peabody Conservatory at Hopkins, where my parents weren't there. And it was them arranging a ride for me, thanks to their friends for taking me. And I was oftentimes the only performer there with no parent in the audience. And I was like 9 around that time. So looking back at that and also having now done a lot of processing, I can confidently say that it really hurt. It really hurt on a quite emotional level, and it made me feel quite insecure. And it extended beyond that to other extracurricular activities like volleyball, where I would end up procuring my own rides. And thankfully, I had great friends in high school who had cars and who drove when I wasn't driving yet. And we had a jolly good time in the cars riding to and from matches. Those were probably some of the highlights of my high school years, was participating in the school volleyball teams. And so I was ultimately raised to be a very independent child, but this was more out of necessity as opposed to my own choice, for instance.
And I think it's so interesting in that it also brought amazing things, right? It brought those relationships with your friends that you mentioned and independence. And I'm thinking about the opposite approach, which I might call the tiger mom, or the parents who are in the audience every time and pushing and making sure you're at all the things. And I think there's, again, there's always this, these two extremes in that energy. And one of the things I've been thinking a lot about is our own interpretation of it. and what that meant. And this idea of the eldest daughter syndrome, how much of it is our interpretation of a situation as a child, which we can't not be held responsible for, right? Or what we think it's supposed to look like and what was. And I kind of feel like I'm an eldest child, and my interpretation now is that I very much chose to be independent. And I don't know if it was out of necessity. Some of it was. Um, but I also felt like it was my job. And while there was chaos around me and lots of other things, when I saw a problem, I took the responsibility for it. And ultimately, I was seen as the responsible one. Jess can handle it. So I always handled all the things that needed fixing. I was known as the organized one, the planner, the one who made sure that we got to the airport on time. And I don't know why that is, except that maybe no one else was doing it, or maybe I was so good at it, like it became my reputation. And to such a degree that um, there are a couple like really interesting stories and I don't even know the total reality of the story now as an adult, but my older brother and I, and he very much abdicated the eldest child role to me, spent a summer by ourselves from at 14 and 15. My parents actually were working in another country with my youngest brother, who couldn't be clearly left alone because he was 5. Um, but we, my mom got me a checkbook and told me how to get groceries, and we lived by ourselves. And pretty much, we were actually talking about this a few weeks ago. I was the responsible one. She was like, well, I knew you could handle it. It was fine. And really, what happened is she had someone who was supposed to take care of us who, at the last minute, had to cancel. And so I was like, we can do it, no problem. They had this job, they had to, I was like, what else are we going to do? And so, of course, I stepped in. And of course, it turned out fine because I was the responsible one. But I look back on it now, we were not having parties, we were not having fun. I was literally managing the house and taking care of all the things that needed to get taken care of while adults were away. And I was not an adult. And it isn't, I try not to, I'm not blaming anyone. I don't really know the whole story. That's really my new approach because I think it's kind from all angles. And maybe no one even knows this many years later. But I do find myself looking back on my childhood a lot, feeling a bit resentful. Like, why was I always the one who helped out and did the thing and stepped in and took responsibility? And then I became that person. And it was kind of glorified. Like, Jess can handle anything, she can take care of anything. And in the moment, it felt like a compliment, but it was actually, as you mentioned at the beginning, a lot to carry. And I have a younger brother who's much younger. He was born when I was 12 and a half. And I took on a lot of raising him. By necessity, in some places, my parents worked and they needed help, and I was responsible. But I look back on it now, and I went to many of his doctor's appointments. It's actually where I decided I wanted to be a pediatrician and be more responsible and help other people. I was really good at it. But I took care of him. He would come visit me in college across the country and stay. I don't know what my parents were doing. He drove across the country with me several times. And in part, maybe because he wanted to, maybe because it was interesting. I'm also thinking other people were doing other things while I was doing that. I had in our relationship, it was very much a parentified role. And it's just interesting to think back. At the time, I didn't think it was abnormal. I thought everybody else did it too. And I thought it's what you did if you were an older sister. And yet I have come to learn through broader exposure in life that it's actually not what everybody else did. A lot of other people were having fun. And I do look back and think like, wow, what did I miss out on? Not not from a regretful space because just like you, I learned a lot from it. But it's interesting. And when I learned about this eldest daughter syndrome, I was like, oh, that explains a lot. So I think I would ask all of our listeners if you happen to be an eldest daughter um, and a physician, or maybe even if you just feel like a physician, because I find that this is pretty universal in physicians, men and women. When did you first feel like it was your job to hold it all together for yourself, for your younger siblings, for your family, um, for your parents? How old were you? Do you remember it? Do you remember that feeling? And to reflect that I think there is a cost of being the responsible one. There's a cost of being the model of independence, as you talked about the hurt. There's a cost of being the example. And I heard this saying that the golden child wears a heavy crown, right? The crown is heavy. And I think many women have this analogy of wearing a crown. I also really like this idea that we became doctors because we were good at being good. We're good at following rules. We're good at being responsible, caring for others. And again, this isn't an all or none, but just recognizing that I do not know the numbers of eldest daughters in medicine or eldest child in medicine or responsible ones in medicine. But I think that this eldest daughter tendency shows up. It leads us to medicine, and then it shows up in medicine in ways that lead to exhaustion, depletion, and burnout. Like we take extra call, we solve everyone's problems. I became chief of all the things so I could solve people's problems and fix things, very likely from this tendency. How has it shown up for you?
So in intern year, I got the award for the Kleenex award.
I love it.
I
Something you
literally
love.
have a piece of paper in fancy certificate font that literally says Kleenex award because I was the go-to person for listening to people's gripes and sufferings and complaints. And not surprisingly, I ended up becoming a chief resident. So I was
So
able
did
to put
I.
that.
Imagine that. How
No,
many
hey.
eldest daughters become the chief resident?
And so, yeah, I put that Kleenex award to good practical use, I suppose. In committee work, like even as an attending, I have really needed to rein in because my tendency earlier on in my junior faculty role was to simply just be the one that just did it because no one else was going to do it as efficiently or as well as me.
Yeah. And we have a whole podcast on that called Toxic Independence. And while it's independence and it's great because you're doing things efficiently and it gets done, it's toxic because you end up exhausted and burnt out. It's the cost. And I hear often, well, what happens if I don't do it? Or if I don't do it, no one will, because we've always stepped in. And I think this happens in our families a lot. Other people assume we'll step in, that we train a bit of sort of learned helplessness of other people as the eldest daughter, because we always do it. And so just some softness here, then it might get done not the way you think, maybe not as efficiently, and maybe it doesn't all need to be done. Or at any rate, maybe it's not yours to do. Maybe it's not your job. There's so much there, and I encourage those listening to go back to that episode. It's called Overresponsibility and Toxic Independence, and it's from a few years ago. And it very, very much ties to this episode.
So, thanks to mindfulness, I have changed. If I can change, you can change too. When my tendency to quote unquote pitch in or just do it myself shows up, I become very aware of it, feel all the feelings in my body, name all the emotions that come up, notice all of the thoughts. And then I hold back because I know that the cost of choosing to quote unquote do it all, especially in group work, is very, very costly to my mind, body, and spirit because I've lived it time and time again.
So if you're tired of being the strong one, potentially like we are, it's okay to choose to put it down and to recognize that you were never meant to carry it all, be responsible for it all. And full disclosure, this is not as easy as it sounds. I hear all the time, even from my husband, well, then just don't do it. It's not as simple as just not doing it. People will be disappointed in you. Um, I have learned that very often other people don't even see or know all the things we've done. We are acutely aware of them, but we're not necessarily seen, understood, or appreciated. and likely because it's quite a complex syndrome, and families are complex. And often they think we chose it. And notice that I actually use those words. I chose it. And I'm not sure that age 5 you can choose things. I think I think it's a complex dynamic and interplay. And it may be that we fill a gap, or it may be that there's so many things. We'll just put it may be lots of things. And so I think for me, this question really, really resonated and got me to want to try to change, which is, and I've seen this very often on Facebook as well. The idea, how often are you holding it together, and do people ask how you are? You always ask how everyone else is, but most people don't ask how you are or if they can help. And so this idea of recognizing that you're always asking and showing up for others, but it's not necessarily bi-directional. And honestly, even if it is, it's stressful when it is bi-directional because we're so not used to it. So for me, that comes up all the time. And it makes me think that I want to show up a little bit differently going forward. I won't say I want to. I have been working on showing up differently for many years now.
And I'm going to take you asking that question to me genuinely. All too often, when you actually are asked the how are you question, people expect, like, oh, a fine, or I've been really busy,
I
but
don't
not
really
the
want to hear
like,
how you are.
right, like not the really, how are you really? So I'm going to say that you just asked me, how am I really?
Yeah.
And my deep, authentic response is that through a lot of therapy work, I had to face and healing processes ongoing from recognizing and putting a label to my childhood experience as having endured childhood emotional neglect.
Mhm.
And I know I'm not alone.
No, you're not. You're not. And does that feel empowering to say that?
Yes, I think that for whatever reason, having a label put on a lot of the summation of my experiences helped to make sense of it all for me and help create some aha moments and connections of why I am the way that I am today, for better or for worse.
So interesting. There's a lot there for me to unpack. I think there's going to be another other podcast episode. So
Yes. We'll put a pin in that.
we're going to put a pin in that. Um, at any rate, let's talk about some of the things we have done to I don't even want to say heal, but move beyond our eldest child syndrome tendencies, if that's what we want to call it.
So, reminding everyone, and we've also done another podcast episode on this, is getting help helps. So, I've already shared multiple times that my work in therapy has really, really helped to, and I will say the word heal, like it has healed me of a lot of the collateral damage on my mind, body, and spirit from the eldest daughter effect. And part of that collateral damage, I'm realizing, was OCD resurfacing, particularly as postpartum OCD. And because I remember how scary and tumultuous that time was, and I know now, after a lot of trial and error, I know now how to prevent feeling that way. I don't ever drop my priority in my self care, in my preventive strategies for that. I can almost slip because we're not perfect, but I can very clearly name my triggers and help prevent further spiraling, and also know where to get help if I do find myself in trouble.
And for me, it's been, I'm going to go back to getting help helps, and coaching was really what helped me. And mindfulness and yoga really helped me. And slowing down really helped me. like actually taking the time to reflect and integrate. When I was a mom of three young children and practicing medicine and holding it all together, I didn't have time to do that, or I didn't prioritize the time. I probably did have time, but I didn't prioritize it. The other thing that I think helps, which is somewhat of a factor out of our control, is just getting older and having some perspective and looking back at things. You can often see things that you can't see in the moment, and you can see the cost. Accepting and not liking has been super helpful. And I think for me, the most powerful tool that I am using for most things is to show up intentionally. So I can wish things were different and I can choose how I want to show up for the way that they are. Wish my childhood was different, wish maybe I'd taken on a different role, wish maybe I had seen some of these things sooner. And because the wish is light, I don't have to regret it. I don't have to have it be heavy. I can just choose to show up differently. And acknowledging fully that choosing to show up differently is very uncomfortable, and that it takes time. And boundaries are part of choosing to show up differently. For me, even that word evokes tension. So I like to show up with boundaries from a place of love. And so just reminding myself that they are love, because if I don't show up with boundaries, I show up resentful and frustrated and people pleasing rather than with love. So setting boundaries and being clear about what I'm available for and not. And even these days, not just available for, because I think I often can be available for lots of things, but how I want a relationship to look and feel like, and what I can bring and not cannot bring or choose not to bring anymore, and that's okay. And even as I say the choose not to bring, I'm like, oh, do you get to do that? But yes, you do.
Yeah, communicating boundaries clearly is an act of love. And to communicate boundaries even to your loved ones, and especially to your loved ones, like my parents, even if the receiving party gets angry, misunderstands you, decides that they dislike you, that's all part of accepting the possibilities of their reactions and responses when you boundary set. So, another big tool, and we've mentioned this time and time again, is rest. And rest is like my top word apparently for 2025, because that's the only one I remember from my intention setting earlier in the year. So rest is so crucial for me. It's about sleep quality and quantity, and it's been quite the excellent medicinal healing balm for my mental health. It helps with my migraines, helps prevent them. And now, because I've been continuous glucose monitoring, it's objectively shown very excellent trends in helping my glucose levels stay within range.
So let's throw out some reflections. I think this was a good time. We've thrown out lots of ideas, and I hope, given the idea that it's complicated and complex, and I really like the idea of staying out of non-judgment for our parents who are always doing the best they could. For us as young children, we were doing the best we could, and remembering that life and family systems are complex. So I would ask, how has being an eldest daughter helped and hurt your life in medicine?
Where have you mistaken self abandonment for compassion or duty?
What does reclaiming your story look like now?
And are there areas from your eldest daughter syndrome journey where there can be some forgiveness and gratitude?
Yeah. So, but since we call ourselves healing medicine, I just want to point out it's part of healing is not just what we do, but what we choose to not do, what we choose to unlearn. And that hopefully this episode has given you some insight into how you got here and encouraged you to pause and take a moment to think about where you'd like to go from here. And if this episode stirred something up in you, please know you're not alone. Please get help. Getting help helps. And I think for many of us, some of these revelations alter things. And so get the help that helps for you, whatever that might be, and recognize that it takes time and patience and support and community. And remembering as you move forward that you and I and Yi Cheng, we were not supposed to carry it all. And even if we have been, we don't have to keep doing it. We would love, love, love if you share this episode with someone else, maybe another eldest daughter. Share the podcast. And if you are interested in sharing space with others who have similar life experiences and want to work on similar challenges, especially in relation to their role as a eldest daughter and a physician, please join me for group coaching or a retreat, or if it feels very tender, and you are someone who wants to enjoy space and time by yourself working on this, you can do one-on-one coaching. And I will also add that if you feel like it's more tender than that, and this is something that might need therapy, it probably actually needs both. I like to say therapy and coaching benefit all of us for all kinds of topics. Then also engage in that. There's tremendous value. Ni Cheng shares about that all the time. And there's certainly no shame. Getting help helps, more help helps. Trying out different things and seeing what helps you. I also encourage you to go back and re-listen to the Over-Responsible Toxic Independence episode. I think there's lots of fun pearls of wisdom. It's one of our most popular episodes. And we hope to see you back here next week.
Thank you for joining us. Be sure to stay on after the sound of the singing bowl for our mindful moment offering to practice.
Please check the show notes for additional resources and insights, and please explore our other episodes.
If our message resonates, we'd love to connect further. Please share this podcast with colleagues, friends, and family members. And remember, when you work with us, you don't just consume information, you create real change.
We offer coaching, mindfulness experiences, workshops, retreats, and talks. Visit healingmedicinepodcast.com to learn more.
Please note the content of this podcast is not medical or life advice. Always participate in our mindful moments safely. Thanks so much for joining me for this mindful moment offering. An invitation for you to close your eyes if you're in an area that's safe for you to do so. Sitting in a position of comfort. First, noticing the support of the ground beneath your feet, or whatever you might be sitting on. And then bringing your hands to your heart, pushing in just slightly, noticing the sensations of your hands atop your heart. And inviting you to bring into your mind's eye a loved one, someone where you have experienced unconditional, reciprocal love, someone that you love dearly and who loves you dearly, and sending some loving and kind intentions to this person. May you be well. May you find peace. May you be happy. May you be free from harm. May you be well. May you find peace. May you be happy. May you be free from harm. May you be well. May you find peace. May you be happy. May you be free from harm. And then including yourself with this loved one and sending a collective we the same loving and kind intentions. May we be well. May we find peace. May we be happy. May we be free from harm. May we be well. May we find peace. May we be happy. May we be free from harm. May we be well. May we find peace. May we be happy. May we be free from harm. And then thanking the loved one for being part of this practice, holding on to you, your own being, and sending those same loving and kind intentions to yourself. May I be well. May I find peace. May I be happy. May I be free from harm. May I be well. May I find peace. May I be happy. May I be free from harm. May I be well. May I find peace. May I be happy. May I be free from harm. And sending yourself some gratitude for being open to this practice. Taking a moment to notice the sensations of the hands atop the chest. And when you're ready, bringing the hands into your lap, blinking open eyes, letting the light back in, taking a moment to notice how you feel now compared to a few minutes ago. Thanks so much for practicing with me.